Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at MedComms So, information, services, resources, activities, and so on for people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and the associated businesses. You'll find lots of information at MedComms and the associated website. So, for those of you who are interested in maybe joining our business, maybe as a medical writer, account manager, or whatever, go and have a look at firstmedcommsjob.com, where there's lots of careers guides and articles and webinars and so on. Or anybody can go and have a look at NetworkPharma TV, where I've got hundreds of videos now, 500 plus videos on all manner of topics around medcoms. Today, I'm absolutely delighted. I'm having a bit of fun at the moment, to be honest. I'm talking to people around the world about their personal journeys. And today I'm absolutely delighted to have Darcy in from Canada. I won't steal your thunder, Darcy. Tell us who you are and where are you, and we'll talk a bit about your personal journey into medcoms.
Great. Hi, it's great to be here. My name is Darcy Moncada, and I'm a senior medical writer at Caudex. Caudex in Canada is based out of Toronto, but I work remotely from home in Montreal, Quebec. And Caudex itself is part of the IPG Health, under the IPG Health umbrella, which really is made up of about 45 companies, I believe around 6,000 employees, and is spread across 6 continents. And we basically work on we have a range of capabilities that we cover.
Okay, so just on that point, just go a little bit further with Caudex. So, as you say, you're part of a very big group there. But Caudex itself, how many people were in the world?
Caudex. So Caudex is in England, the United States, as well as Canada. Right. It has like a feeling of a small agency, but there's a pretty good number of us there. And yeah, it's great. We work together like sort of like clockwork around the world.
Okay, and that's an interesting point, isn't it? That you're within an agency, within a big group sort of thing, but you can still hold on to that sort of smaller agency or medium-sized agency culture sort of thing. But on the other hand, you also have access presumably to all sorts of resources and people and ideas and solutions and so on and so forth. So it's interesting. And people from the outside, I think, there are pros and cons whether you join a little agency, whether you join a big networked agency and so on. And there are pros and cons, aren't they? But so that's where you are with Caudex. So that sets the scene there. Let's just go back. What I'm interested in is your personal journey. So take me back to the beginning. University, academia. You were in academia before you came in.
Yeah,
just talk us through the stages of your progress towards
I can even go back a little bit further. Like I always had a passion for science, even as a child, loved discovery. So I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in biology, and I just loved, I loved science. So I wanted to go further, and I ended up getting my PhD in molecular parasitology, which is quite a different field. But after that, I heard about, MedComms from actually peers within my network from university. And that's basically the first place I heard about MedComms.
Okay, just out of interest, going back, that was all in Canada. Your academic background's all in Canada, is it?
No, so I'm originally from the United States, and
right, okay.
Bachelor's degree in the United States. I moved to Montreal to get my PhD at McGill University at the Institute of Parasitology. And I ended up settling here for several reasons. But that's where I did meet sort of my network of peers that were in MedComms. And I basically got my first job as a freelance medical writer.
Oh, right. Okay. So you went straight from being PhD into freelance writer?
Yes, freelance medical writing for an agency in Montreal. And starting off as a freelancer was interesting. You still do need to take a writing test, but most of the training was really on the job. The company had a wonderful on the job sort of training system, so they really prepared you well. Yeah. So I spent the first 5 years of my career as a freelance medical writer.
Oh, right. Okay, that's a little bit unusual. And if I was honest, I would recommend people didn't do that. And I know there are always people who do everything, but I would say it's better if you're going to MedComms to go into an agency and get trained, and then the freelance option is there, and it's amazing, really. For there are people doing freelancing all over the world, sort of thing. But it's interesting you've gone that other way around.
Yeah,
Do you
that
look
was
back on
for
that?
personal, that was
Right.
for
Okay.
personal experiences. It worked well for my life at that
Right.
time.
Okay.
And it did give me that sort of entrepreneurial spirit. I had to
Right.
learn
Yeah.
quite a
Yeah.
lot on my own, but I learned a lot from several different companies, how they all work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
later I joined Caudex during the pandemic, basically. Lots of things changed out
Right.
there, and I decided I was going to go for it and go right into MedComms for a full-time job, because I really wanted to know what went on behind the scenes, right? I was more interested in finding out how projects came about, right? Like what the client, what the conversations were with the client, because as a freelancer, you don't necessarily have access to that information. You just take in projects, and deliver them. But working at a MedComms agency, you really have insights to everything from the beginning of the project, right? Like from the strategy, the design, all the way to delivery.
And again, just to be clear on this, you joined Caudex as a writer, as a medical writer,
I
yeah?
joined Caudex as a medical writer in 2021. And then after about a year and a half, I became a senior medical writer.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about, I don't know, let's stick with the Caudex experience specifically.
Mhm.
What sort of writing, what sort of projects do you get involved in? I know things have changed a little, and we'll come back to a little bit how it's changed for you in terms of what you're working on. But just give us a flavor, as a medical writer in Caudex, give us a flavor of what your day is looking like and what you do and who you talk to and how you
What I
work.
think is great about Caudex basically has medical communication. It covers three areas: publications, commercial, as well as medical. So I've worked
Right.
both on the promotional and commercial side, as well as the medical affairs side. What I think is really most fascinating is I get to work on lots of different types of projects, everything from speaker events, speaker engagement programs, I make sales rep training, medical science liaison training, HCP facing materials, educational websites, podcasts, workshops, MOA videos. And I also am involved in strategy and partnering with our clients. So I think it's such a diverse book
Right.
of work we have. Like it's never dull. It's always exciting.
And presumably lots of different therapeutic areas, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's yeah. Definitely, I've worked across a range of therapeutic areas, even at Caudex. And I think as a medical writer, we're meant to be able to sort of pivot from one therapy area to another, right? Like we will become experts in certain therapeutic areas, but basically that same framework and system we can apply to each piece of work. Even if we go to another therapeutic area, we can quickly get up to speed, and we can quickly make deliverables. So that's one great thing, and
I think
something
that's
you need to be agile, I think.
right. And I think that's it's so interesting. I'm not a writer. I suppose to some extent, I would say, all of us in medcoms do the same thing, but particularly for the writers. And I think from the outside, it's one of those challenges. It's like, can you really, it's like if you're a postdoc or a PhD, you become very immersed in a particular area. Can you really go into an environment where you can walk in on a Monday morning and find out you're working on a different therapy area? And you're trained, aren't you, to pick up information very
Yeah,
quickly. And
you
but it's also
can.
just part of the
Yep.
fun of it. You can, but it's also
Yep.
part of the fun of it, isn't it? I mean, people seem to like in medcoms, they like the variety. I mean, people talk about
Yeah.
no 2 days the same. That's a sort of common theme that comes through from
Yep.
talking to people.
You gain that skill with time and experience. So initially it might seem a little bit daunting, but you're able to pick up information much quicker, know what's important, know what key information is, much quicker over time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so tell us about what I mean, because I know that you've got involved in sort of instructional design, learning design, and stuff. So you got involved in some sort of educational type activity. That's just a little bit different. So just talk a little bit about what's involved in that and the sort of again slightly different sorts of projects or the direction you're going in
Yeah.
from
So
that point of
so I
view.
think when I started freelancing, I noticed that I would get a project sort of started on a slide deck and have an outline. And I wondered who made that outline. How did they decide, on the course, on the curriculum. And I looked a little bit more into that, and it's apparently instructional designers and learning experience designers are involved in this. So I decided to enroll in a certificate program at the University of Toronto in instructional design or adult learning. Did that first, and it really opened my eyes a lot to, how we should make our educational materials like for adults. There's actually a science behind it. So
Right.
so we're not just communicating, but it's how we communicate, how we look at the learner. There's quite a lot of information that needs to be sort of laid out even before you start your project. So there are designers, right, that will create the overall design, the overall layout before the medical writer would even come in and do their job. So I wanted to know that process. And then on top of that, I started more recently a certificate in learning experience design, which is similar to user experience design, but actually specifically for learning. And this is where we look at things like empathy in our learning, psychology, all these types of things to drive behavioral change, to really understand the learner more and understand our audience more. So I think it's something that could benefit really any medical writer to just read about these topics, even just to know that they're the foundation of what we make.
Okay, and asking a naive question here, does that mean you're getting involved in specifically education and learning type projects? Is
So
that within a company like Caudex? I mean, is there the opportunity to then become a
yeah,
bit more
so
focused on that sort
I
of
mean,
project?
honestly, it's all of our communications are for learning, right? We're teaching.
So I was going to say that the principles are going to apply to everything, sort of
So
thing.
you can look at it like, yes, there's actual medical education where that applies, but those principles apply, I think, to all of our deliverables. The same basic theories. We're communicating with adult learners, right? They have different needs than, say, children at school. They have different needs. They have prior learning that they're building off of, and learning has to be very relevant to them. So there are a lot of aspects that I think they go across all of our deliverables. But on top of that, yes, we do really use these principles and skills directly for creating, training curriculums for sales representatives and
Right.
MSLs. It's an advantage. It's definitely an advantage that we have.
Okay, and I don't know, particularly over the last couple of years, I mean, e-learning as a particular delivery has boomed, hasn't it? I mean,
Yes.
any views on how that's going? I still remember the days when e-learning meant a sort of voiceover PowerPoint sort of thing, and it was a bit disappointing, but it's all a bit more sophisticated now, isn't it?
It's definitely, yeah, e-learning. I mean, most things are online now. I would say all of most of the materials we make for training, they're in a learning management system. It's all digital. But yeah, I think the way that people approach e-learning is different. It's more of like micro learning, small chunks, changing engagement, looking at making materials accessible. So I think I think it has changed over the years. We still use PowerPoint, but we use it differently. We use it more
Yeah.
effectively.
Let's hope so. Compared to what we did in the old days. And just out of interest, I mean, these are very different times now than they were 3-4 years ago. I think, sorry, I'm right, aren't I? You've said you're working remotely. You're in Montreal, the office in Toronto. Just out of interest, how do you find? Well, I suppose your background as a freelancer meant you were working remotely anyway, sort of thing. But how do you find it within an organisation like Caudex? Is everybody working remotely? Is there a mixture? Are some people hybrid? Or is it left very much to your own devices? How does it work?
I think it's a mixture. Some people prefer to go in the office. Some people they like to go in once a week to the office. I think they've been very flexible. It's been great, and yeah, people are able to work in a way that works best for them. I think the company's been very accommodating to that, and that's been great.
And it works quite well in MedComms, doesn't it? I mean, we were a business that was going in that direction anyway. I think the pandemic and the lockdowns pushed us faster.
I think
But
so.
it works quite well in this business, working virtually and remotely. And and online and so on,
I
doesn't it?
think so. And some of our clients, I mean, or a lot of my clients are in Europe, right? So I
Right.
couldn't
Okay.
be
Yeah.
face
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
face with them anyway. That's another great thing about working virtually and working in MedComms. You interact with people all around the world.
Actually, I didn't. I should have asked that question early on. Actually, so you're based in Canada, but you're not just working with Canadian companies working on projects for Canada. Right? You're working basically at what you're saying at a European, global
No,
type level.
most of my clients or our clients, mine anyway, are in the US and across Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. How much traveling do you get to do in your job?
Um, it depends. We travel for conferences. We might
Right.
go to client meetings. So advisory boards, those types of things. So at least, I mean, some people travel a lot more. Me about a couple times a year at the right now.
Okay.
And when I started, actually, the restrictions for COVID were starting to ease up. So it was really the first, like some of the first events the companies were holding post COVID. I went to, so that
Right.
was really great.
Again, that's a bit different these days, isn't it? I mean, in the good old days, you had to travel, so there was a lot of travel involved. Whereas these days, there's a lot more virtual of
Yeah,
one
I think
sort or another.
it
So
depends on what the intent is, but I mean, definitely conferences for sure. The team goes out, like it's a great time.
yeah. I always think with the travel, that it's important to say to people, it sounds glamorous, but it isn't necessarily.
It's
You can
not
be just
glamorous. It's a lot of hard work, especially an
yeah,
advisory board. If you're there setting up, even the day before, setting up, making sure everything's running, putting, gathering everything, and then sort of making sure you get everything to go. There's a lot of logistics, right? So yeah,
yeah,
it's not glamorous, but it still is exciting. Instead of working at the desk, you get to get up and go out
yeah.
and interact with people. So
Yeah,
that's
great. Okay. And it's lovely to, I mean, I love these conversations because the enthusiasm that's coming over is absolutely brilliant. So you're enjoying yourself, aren't you? And
yeah,
I could tell just from listening to you. So,
I love my
just
job.
out of it, if you look ahead a little bit, can you say I mean, are you gonna stay as a medical writer, become a principal? I don't know quite what, whatever the stages are, just become more and more of a more senior medical writer, or do you see other options opening up in ahead of you?
So, I mean, there are very, clear pathways that you
Right.
can take in Caudex. The next step for me would either be associate director of medical writing or associate medical director. Those are like the two next paths. And then beyond that, it branches out to other things like strategy and learning and development.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
um, I think the next logical step for me would be associate medical director, just based on the work I do. But that varies for everyone. So it's great that we have
So
paths though that we can follow.
exactly, exactly. But just to, if I'm understanding correctly, so you'd probably be doing a little bit less writing and some more strategic and consultancy type work, and
Yeah, exactly.
is encompassed within that role. Okay, so look, I'm not trying to get you to predict what's happening over the next couple of years. It's just again, it's just nice to get a bit of a sense of where people are going. So look, it's great. These conversations are always a bit too short for me. I quite enjoy them. As I say, I love the fact the enthusiasm's coming over like this. So thanks ever so much for talking about your personal journey. I know I can speak for you. Anyone listening to this, if they're interested, they can follow up. LinkedIn is an easy way of doing it. They might have some questions or just get a little bit more from you and your experience. So, but thank you very much for joining us today. I'm just going to ask you to give us a little wave and we'll stop the recording. So take care. Bye.